And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Attention roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time and 5:05 Pacific for me. Dog outside, bright and early. Grab your coffees. We got a good show for you today. We're going to memorialize the career and interview, of course, former retired Deputy Chief Robert Lukach. I think I got his name right this time. John and I have butchered Rob's name so many times. Lukach. For some reason, I don't know what we added letters to his name. We called him Lukovich. But anyway, look forward to it. Starting to get some executives here from the NYPD to get leadership mindset, the role of an executive in comparison to what we see right now. Ron Laser was the first of many. So good morning, Ron Laser. Says he's on the road, and he's looking forward to listen to the former chief. So good morning, Hassan. Joe Mango. Joe Mango says he's ready for another 3 hours and 24 minutes. I'm not. My back is not ready for it. But anyway, so what do you think? You ready to go, John?
Yeah, let's bring him up. All right, everybody, let's bring Chief Rob Lukach, retired NYPD. I think he did 35 years. Rob, welcome. Pleasure
Good morning,
to have you,
everybody.
brother.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Eric. Great to be here.
Good morning. Good morning, Chief. How are you, sir?
Good. Hanging in there.
Are you ready for this? Rob
I think
Lukach.
so. That's it.
Somehow we added letters to your name. We were calling you Rob Lukovich, and it was Ron Lason that corrected us. Like, can you guys just get his name right? Like, I don't know.
Yes, I think you were making me Jewish, right? With Lukovich there.
Well, listen, you're gonna be family.
That's all.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
So listen, no, thanks for joining us. I mean, you're always in the chat with us every day, so we appreciate you. So why don't you just tell the audience, tell everybody about yourself a little bit, how you grew up, where you grew up, why you joined,
Okay. Well, I grew up on the mean streets of New Jersey, Paramus, New Jersey. Yeah, it was rough because you could walk like late at night and you wouldn't see anybody else, so it was really rough. But yeah, I grew up there, and I joined the fire department over there when I was older, so I had a little bit of experience, volunteering and stuff, and it was fun. And then a bunch of guys told me, "Hey, there's a big test in the NYPD. Why don't we go take it?" So I was like, "All right." I always thought about either being a fireman or a cop. I had big interest in that always. Even in school, I took this test, and the test is like, yeah, you should probably be like a construction worker or a cop or a fireman. So I don't know if that fared well or whatever, but that's the way it kind of led me. So I end up going to take the test in DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx. It wasn't my first venture into the city, but I had gone to Ranger games and stuff, so I was familiar with Manhattan, but yeah, I wasn't really familiar with the city at all. So there was like 53,000 of us took the test. It was like in 1983. It was really, I guess it was pretty competitive, and I end up, my list number is 19,821. So I literally took the card and I threw it away. I said, "There's no way that I'm gonna be ever called for this." And lo and behold, a couple of years later, I get this call from this investigator. I'm like, wow, all right, that's cool. I start going through the process, and I end up moving up to Pearl River in Rockland County. It's pretty much all cops and firemen when I moved up there.
That's Copland.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And then, I literally had an apartment right on Central Avenue, and one day this the St. Patrick's Day parade, they're marching down the street, waking me up. I'm like, Jesus, this is like crazy. So I ended up getting on in April of 1987, and I mean, I was excited about it. So I ended up going to after the police academy, which is on 20th Street, right? After that, we ended up going to NSU 9. So that's first, it was the neighborhood stabilization unit. And then midway through that, they changed it to the field training unit. So it's field training unit 9. It had the 4.6, the 5.2, the 5.0, and the 4.7. So there was, a good array of houses, and different sergeants for each one, So the one sergeant would be like, "Oh, we're going to take it easy today. We're going to go to 5.0, drive around." And then one of the other sergeants, Sergeant Cream, he was in a 4.7. He's like, "Come on, we're going to go make a collar. We're going to drive around, do some real police work." So it gave you a good array. And I learned a lot. So I made a couple of collars in NSU. A couple of 511s. Started off slow, whatever. So then I end up after NSU or FTU, I end up putting on the dream sheet like the 4-1. I figure let me go to a somewhat busy house. And I think because I did that, they were like, "Geez, this idiot wants to go to the 4-1." I said, "Well, let's put him there, man." So I got my first pick. So I don't know if it was the right pick, but I'm figuring, hey, this is like, a busy house, the Fort Apache or whatever. And
Hey,
I don't know
Rob,
when
before you go ahead, did you work with Ralph Friedman?
I didn't. I knew Ralph Friedman, but he already had left when I got there.
Nice.
So yeah. So classic. Classic cop, right? I mean, street guy all the way. Knew everything about the street. So, but in the 4-1, I guess it changed a little. There was like you were changing in the locker room. You'd hear shots fired and stuff. So hey, it's going to be a busy night or whatever. And what the funniest thing about the 4-1 was if you never walked into that precinct, you had to run because there was guys. The second floor was the locker room. Guys would stand up there with a water bucket, and if you were slow, you got a bunch of water dumped on your head, man. There was no way. So you learned right away, even on the way in when you're coming in regular plain clothes, you ran in. You got to a certain point and you ran. And sometimes you'd hear the water splash behind you. They try to get you, but it was great. And I met a lot of really good cops. I got into first I got into regular patrol, and obviously we're doing 4 to 12s. That's when the 9 squad chart was there, and that was a sinful chart because it was days 4 to 12s, 2 weeks of 4 to 12s, then midnights, and then days. And it would be like after you just did a set of midnights, you're doing days. It's like there was no sleep. You were like, this is insanity. You go home, take a nap, and it was a vicious cycle. But yeah, so I had a really good partner. We met a lot of really good cops there, and then I ended up made a lot of collars. I was pretty active. At least 2 or 3 collars a month, and then they asked me to go to the street narcotics enforcement unit inside the precinct. So went in there. I had a really good boss, Sergeant Grace, and we had a lot of fun. Doing rooftop observations, getting people off the street that are dealing drugs and stuff. So it was definitely an interesting time. And then first Pinero was my CO. He ended up moving up all the way up. And then I had Harvey Katowitz was a good guy. And then I had this other guy, John Carroll, who ended up going to Fordham University. So Carroll comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to put you in anti-crime." I said, "Well, boss, I'm really not interested in anti-crime. I'm pretty good where I am. I like snoo. I'm really having a good time." He goes, "Well, you're making too much overtime, so I'm putting you anti-crime." I said, "All right. I mean, I'll take it. What am I gonna do, right?" So I had a good team with anti-crime. Again, a lot of gun collars and stuff. Learned movement of people, how they grabbed their waistband and did these certain things, and all the good stuff. And then then the sergeants. So now I'm like, I think 5 years in, and you could take the sergeant's exam, but then they changed it. They were something like that, have a certain amount of time, and they said now you need a certain amount of education. So I ended up going back to school to make that, to do to get that in before I get promoted. So I end up taking the sergeant's exam. And I fare pretty well. I mean, I literally studied a lot. Like I was, adamant. And the reason I studied, truthfully, because there were always bosses there that made me want to study. There was one sergeant in the 4-1 that if you were on patrol and you went through a red light, he would give you a CD. And I'm like, "What? Come on. So you want me to sit at the red light like a sitting duck and just wait for somebody?" I said, "No, that's what we do. We roll through red lights. I mean, that's the way it was." And they were like, "No, we're going to get a CD." I said, "All right, well, I mean, that's a reason to take the test." And then there was another guy. He put me on a strike post for like the whole month. And then he goes to me, he goes, "Where's your activity?" I go, Sarge, you've been putting me on a strike post the whole week. Like, activity?" He goes, yeah, you still got to give me your summonses and stuff. I said, all right. So then instead of getting a ride to the strike post, I started walking to the strike post, and I would bang all the double parkers on the way there just so I could get my numbers. But I said that was another reason. So, I ended up taking the test, studied really hard. Actually took 2 weeks off before the test and just continually read the patrol guide like a madman, legal bureaus, everything else. And I fared pretty well on the test. I think my list number was like 176 or whatever. So I ended up getting promoted in the first group in March of 94. So I literally had 7 years as a cop. So I had a pretty good experience. I literally had over about 300 arrests. Most of them were felonies, misdemeanors. There were a few violations. I remember you guys spoke about how the hell is a violation arrest, but we did have them. Those were the ones where you pull a guy over or whatever. You want to give him a ticket or whatever, or even a C summons, pops a warrant. And then you're like, all right, I'm going to return him on the warrant and charge him with the C offense. So, but yeah, so I was pretty active. Then I ended up getting promoted, and I got sent to the 2-5, Spanish Harlem. So it was good there. I did about a year on patrol. Did midnights. I was a big midnight guy. I liked it because you were able to do what you wanted to do. There was really less supervision, so you're kind of on your own, and it was good that you can make your arrests. I didn't mind making the collars. So,
Rob, how was that? How was that transition for you from cop to sergeant? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so it was okay. It wasn't great though, because I was an active guy. I like to make arrests. So when I first get to the 2-5, there wasn't really I thought I'd go to the midnights. I figured these guys are going to be active, and really weren't that much. They didn't really want that much activity. They were really good at squashing, like a 61 or a complaint report. They were better at talking somebody out of filling it out than even taking the complaint and trying to look for the bad guy. So, but you get used to it, I guess.
On the shit can.
Yeah, exactly. They were really, good at it. So, I just kind of, accepted that. And, I worked with the guys that, were busy. So, but it was definitely, that's, obviously the first, the hardest transition, I think, going from cop to sergeant. And, it took a little getting used to, the pushback sometimes you'd get from people and how to deal with it. And, I was never like a hammer. I was never big on CDs and stuff. To me, that's not how it worked, man. There's other ways to do it. I always said, first, talk to the guy or gal and see what's going on. Sometimes there's other issues. People are, it's not always, I don't want to do the job or whatever. So you got to do that first, and then you put them on different posts. There's different ways to handle it rather than CDs. To me, a CD just is not. It's not necessary until maybe you've exhausted all other things. You don't want to go right to that. And I always hated bosses that would just, I'm giving them a CD. It's like, well, did you even talk to them? Did you even find out what's going on? Yeah. And worse, I hated was bosses that would say, "Hey, give that guy a CD." I said, "Well, I'm giving him a CD for you? Come on, what the hell?
You're doing his bidding, his dirty work, because he didn't have the balls to do it himself."
Yeah,
what's interesting, Rob? You're talking about how that was your driving motivation to get promoted because you saw weak and ineffective bosses. So as you went through the ranks, and obviously you made up the deputy chief, right? So you had a lot of leadership experience, but as your time, and I'm a firm believer, you watch the podcast, great friend of the podcast. I always talk about how leadership is a learned skill. So along the way, as you learn the skills to be an effective leader, obviously, because you made it to deputy chief, what were some of your principles for leadership and some of your traits that you look for in your cops, the people that worked for you, and what were your principles in leadership?
I always liked the guys that worked, right? And I always pushed towards and gravitated toward the guys that did the work. And I always, it was always my thing. You would compliment in public, right? They teach you that, praise in public, discipline and talk in private. that was always the way. So I would always make sure that they got the praise and what they deserve for what they did. And the other guys I tried to motivate, to bring up, because say, all right, you can do this, you can do that. What are you looking to do on the job? Are you just looking to stay, here, or are you looking to go somewhere else, narcotics or thing? Because there's all avenues. I mean, that's what's great about the NYPD is there's so many things that you can move along to, right? So there's anything you want to do on the job you can do, but you gotta move yourself towards that, particular thing. So my biggest thing was motivation and get people to do what they got to do. And I always said I'd lead by the front. Like I was active, I was busy. Listen, I'll go to jobs. I'm not afraid to handle any type of job at all. And the other thing is I always like to ask advice. Even when I was a deputy chief, I was asking, the ESU cops and everybody else, the patrol cops, what'd you do? What'd you see? What do you think we should do? Because I don't know all, right? I listen, I don't know everything that's going on. Give me some insight, give me some ideas. Yeah, ultimately, especially when I was like the duty chief or whatever, it fell on me and I'll take that. That's my responsibility there. But you got to be able to take the advice from everybody, bring in everybody. I always thought that was the best management style, was to bring in everybody, get opinions, and then filter out what you think is the best. And then if somebody gave you a really great idea, obviously you say, hey, listen, man, you were as you would always say, spot on, man. Your answer was perfect, so but that's how I like to do it. And yeah, I understand there's some that you're hard to motivate and hard to move along, but I think if you lead by example, I think you're better off doing that, so and you try. Do some people end up getting disciplined? Yeah, I mean, but I like to think that that's like the last resort, but definitely like to lead from the front. And the other thing is I'll lead from the front, but I'm not doing especially in ESU and stuff. Like, all right, I'll give you what I think about what we should do, but then I'm stepping back. You're now the actions are what you do. I'm not going to be the guy that's opening doors, and I'm not the lead bunker, right? As I'm not going in, right? So you got to trust. That's the other thing. A big thing is you got to trust the people that you put to do the job and let them do it.
So, Chief, you make sergeant, right? How'd you, and you wind up basically leading ESU. How'd that transition happen? Like, what'd you do from there? Did you go in as a sergeant? Did you go a lieutenant, or did you start to transition into the executive ranks?
Into ESU, I didn't get into ESU till I was a captain.
Okay.
So what happens is I get promoted to lieutenant, and I go to the 4-0, and another house, busy house. I love the 4-0. Great cops. Everybody was busy. Everybody did their job. And then I end up going to one of those stupid borough meetings, right, where I got to explain the GLAs, right? So I got 4 GLAs, and there was like 5 GLAs before. The other way around. I got 5 GLAs, and there were 4 GLAs like last month or whatever. So now I'm up like 20%, right? But the 4-5 has got like 60 GLAs, and they went down from 65, so they got a reduction. I'm going, you worry about my 5 GLAs and they got 60? Come on. Nobody's stealing cars in the 4-0. They're dumping the cars in the 4-0. They're not stealing them. So I don't know. I do a presentation with recidivists and stuff. I got Kissick and Delatorre. So Delatorre comes.
Delatorre have Hannah?
Yeah, he did. I don't know. I don't know if he did.
He's got like a couple of heads he's hanging on to.
Yeah. But Delatorre actually says, if it's a good idea, I did it. If it's a bad idea, Kissick did it. I'm like, what the hell? So holy mackerel. So I end up doing a presentation about GLA recidivists and stuff, and they Kissick likes me, so he says, you know what, come to the borough and be the domestic violence lieutenant. So I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like there was really no domestic violence stuff then. And he's like, yeah, they're doing a whole pilot program where they're going to start with home visits and all this stuff. It's going to start in the 4-3 and the 4-4. So I said, all right, I come to the borough. So I'm like the coordinator from the borough to do that. And you know, it turned out really well. You know, they ended up, you know, obviously going citywide with it or whatever. So it was I was happy to be part of the beginning of that, you know. And then I guess what was it? I think Jaffe came in, and Jaffe basically says, "What are you doing?" Like, well, I'm like the domestic violence coordinator. I was like all happy, right? And she's like, "Nah, yeah, you're not that anymore. You know, that's it. You know, I'll find another spot for you." So she puts me as the admin lieutenant for the borough. Because the guy that was there, he didn't want it no more. He's like, no, this is not for me, man. I'm out. So I was all right. Now I'm you know, the admin lieutenant. It taught me a lot, you know. But I didn't want it. That's not what I came. You know, I didn't come in for that, man. I was like, what the heck? So I'm all right, whatever. So then you know, then during that time, you know, 9/11 happens, right? So I'm sitting at my desk. I hear like a plane crashed or whatever, and listen to 10/10 Win News and stuff, and then at that point, Timlin and Izzo had came over. So you know, two good guys. I mean, well, at least Izzo. I liked Izzo. Timlin, I have a little issue. I'll tell you about the little issue I got with him. But so he so the 9/11 comes in. I think Timlin goes straight down to the scene. Izzo is late coming in, so Izzo comes in. And I said, "Hey, one, you know, operations called." He said they want you to stay here and run the borough. And he's like, "Yeah, okay, no problem." And he goes in his office. He changes. He gets in his, you know, he puts his duty belt on, and starts walking out. I go, "Chief, where you going?" He goes, "I'm going downtown." I said, "But I think they wanted you to stay here." He goes, "You run it. I don't care. I'm going down." And I said, all right. So now I'm running the borough. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing, right? So I'm just like, all right, you know, sending people down, all this other stuff. I mean, it was hard, you know, because you see what's going on down there, and you're sending cops down to this. It was like, but I ended up, you know, days after going down myself, doing the, you know, digging in the pile and stuff. Just it was crazy time, you know, sad, but you know, you get past it, but it's always it's always in the back of your head, you know. So, but and then so from there, I get this allegation, you know. So I'm at this Christmas party. I get an allegation against me, right? So unbeknownst to me, I get called in by Timlin, and Timlin goes, "Hey, we got this allegation, blah 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 blah," and he goes, "Pick a command." I go, "What?" Pick a command. When I'm getting kicked out? He goes, "Yeah, you're getting kicked out of the borough." I said, "All right." I said, can you give me 5 minutes before I pick a command?" So I call around. I see that like the Bronx Task Force has like an admin spot or whatever. So I'm like, I go back in, and yeah, I go, "Chief, I'll take the Bronx Task Force." He goes, "No." He goes, "Pick a numbered command." I said, "All right." I go, send me to the 4-4 then. So he sends me to the 4-4. Unbeknownst to me, I find out like he's literally spoken to the Bronx DA to see if he can get me locked up and stuff. I'm like, this is insanity, man. This guy's, I don't know, you know. So anyway, the whole thing is the allegation gets completely unsubstantiated. You know, it was like I had witnesses for me that, you know, that testified that I didn't do anything, but whatever, you know, I still ended up.
Was this an arrest?
No, no, no. So I was off duty at the time. So it was just,
Gotcha.
it was at one of the Christmas parties. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it didn't turn out well, but whatever, I took it, you know, that's the way it was. So I ended up being the 4-4, another great command. I loved every guy that was there and gal. That was great time. You know, I was a second platoon commander. And then I end up, for a short time going to the outdoor range as the admin lieutenant, and then I got promoted to captain. So when I get promoted to captain, Steve Bonanno is the CO of the 2-3, and it's me and another guy that got promoted to captain. They're going Manhattan North. So my friend Eddie Caro, who was a lieutenant, he was close with Bonanno. So Bonanno goes, hey, who should I pick? And he goes, no, pick Lukach as your XO. So I go there, and Steve Bonanno, what a phenomenal guy, man. He really a great guy. I literally go in, and I think he was a DI at the time. I go, hey, Inspector, Rob Lukach. And he goes, hey, yeah, how you doing, Rob? Good. He goes, that's your desk over there. And, go change or whatever. Here's the locker room. I go, I change, I come back. So there's nothing on my desk, right? So, because the previous XO had already taken everything. And he picks up this big in basket with about, I don't know, 61s like piled this high. And he takes it from his desk and he brings it over to mine. And he goes, here, that you got to go through those. So I said, all right. I go, I'll go through it. Then because he was previous aviation, he turns around in his desk and he's got this little remote helicopter and he's flying the thing around. I'm like, all right, I can see why you just gave me all this work so you could play. But I had a great time with him, and he ends up getting, I think Ronnie Wasson was the CO of ESU during 9/11, and Wasson ends up leaving. So now there's an opening, and Steve Bonanno gets tapped to be the CO of ESU. So I stayed in the 2-3 as the XO for a while, doing the impact and everything else like that. And while he was the CO of ESU, I kept like sending him notes. Hey, I had fire department experience, hazmat experience. So I said, hey, pick me, man. I'll come. So eventually he picks me. The day, yeah, but I mean, he was a great man. The day I get picked to go to, I know I'm getting transferred, right? So they bring me down to Comstat. So McCarthy's there, and they ask me about impact, right? So they say, where's the 2-3 impact? Right here, get up to the podium. Now I'm up at the podium all by myself, right? So I'm like, all right, it was definitely, they kept hammering me, right? So it was like, what about this? What about this? They were looking to make the point, I guess, before they transferred me or whatever. So it was just like, definitely a hit. And then finally I succumbed to their argument. They kept beating me up, and I finally said, you know what? You're right, Commissioner. I'll take care of it. It was like, why is your activity on Tuesday and Wednesday so weak? I said, that's when the rookies are off. Like Tuesday and Wednesday are their RDOs. I don't have anybody else. Well, you got to fix that. I said, all right, you got me. I'll give up on that one. And then the next day I was transferred to ESU, and I became one of the patrol captains. It was probably one of the greatest days on the job, knowing I was going to work. I always wanted to. I tried as a cop to get an ESU. I tried as a lieutenant, and everybody told me, we don't pick our people. It's picked by the PC or whatever. There's you need a major hook to get into one of those into that unit. But now here I am as a captain.
Rob, walk us through that. You become, you're working on patrol. You have all this leadership experience, and you transition into now special operations, and you're working in ESU. You're an E-man as a captain. Did you have any prior experience or any trades work, any military service? What were any prior skills or prerequisites that you had for ESU, if any?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, I knew a little bit about construction and little home repairs and stuff. But I think the big key for me was when I was a volunteer fireman. We did a lot with hazardous materials, right? So that's when anthrax was being passed around and letters and things like that. So they actually, when I got into ESU, Bonanno made me like the hazmat captain or whatever. So because there was competition, not only competition with the fire department, but there was jobs where the fire department was trying to take over evidence jobs and things like that. So kind of brought me into that particular.
Rob, I think we just lost your volume a little.
Yeah, we just lost his audio.
Yeah, I think you're back, Rob. I think nah.
Nah.
All right.
Uh-oh. That's the real boss.
There I am back.
All
Yeah,
right, you're
the
back.
missus,
What'd you
the
do? What'd you
missus
do,
is
Rob?
listening.
Yeah, that's the real chief.
She's listening in. She wants me to make sure I mention her, because she was a cop in the 4-8 for 9 years. So I guess I got to give her kudos. I didn't mention her yet, so she cut me off.
Yeah, yeah. So Rob, I mean, I think the crazy. And I'm still stuck on this. Could we just go back on this real quick, and then we'll come back?
Sure.
You said 58,000 people took your exam,
Yeah, I think it was that many. Yeah,
and you were number 19,000 on the list.
19,821.
What do you think about the fact that the NYPD can't even get 1,600 guys at this point?
Yeah, I mean that's insanity. It doesn't surprise me though. Like I think about it. You see, look at all the internal and external factors that put pressure on a cop now. You can't. Hey, when I got on, I I asked my wife the other day. I said, "How come so many people get CCRBs now?" I said, "When I was a cop, I didn't get that many CCRBs." And she goes, "Well, you know why?" He goes, "Because it's too easy now. They do it on an app. They could do it on online. When I was a cop, somebody wanted to give you a CCRB, right? They had to go to the precinct, and then you give them a form, and then they say, can I borrow one of your pens to fill out the form?" And you're like, no, these are my pens. I pay for these, so no, you got to go find your own pen. So people be like, well, I got to find my own pen. Yeah. So you kind of, they deterred them a little bit, right? They didn't even want to fill it out. Now everything's so easy. You have the laws, right? The diaphragm law and everything else. I don't know why anybody would want it. You don't want to, I don't, listen, you become a cop so you put people in jail, right? You become a cop to go to jail. I think there's just too many factors now where guys will end up getting hurt. It's not fair, especially in New York. I see other places that's fine. Like here in Florida, right? So you look at Polk County, that sheriff, that guy's amazing, right? You ever listen to him? He's like, hey,
Brady Judd.
yeah. He goes, why'd you shoot the guy 60 times?
People love him.
Yeah, they do, right? He's like, well, we shot the guy 60 times because we ran out of bullets, he says.
Imagine saying that in New York City.
Imagine? No way. So yeah, it was I don't blame anybody right now for not taking it. I totally understand. It's not what it was, it's
I think it's great segue and we talk about recruitment. Like you said, 50, I think you said 50 some odd thousand people were taking the test, and you took it in 83, and then now you got on the job in 87. So it's 4 years after them. The competition was just vast. So back, compared to now, we talk about recruitment efforts, right? The best recruiting tool was word of mouth, right? People would say, take the job. So back then, what was the recruitment effort that led NYPD, right? Because you could have taken tests for Jersey, you could have taken those civil services, well, they have those chief exams. What led you to the NYPD? Was it commercials? Was it shows? Was it people telling you to go to the job? Did you know NYPD cops? What was your driving force to go to the NYPD?
Yeah, it was definitely word of mouth. Like I knew, the guys I grew up with, they knew guys that were in the city and stuff. They had one of the guys named Kevin Sheehan, his family had bars in the city, so his whole family knew all these cops, and it was definitely word of mouth. I didn't even know that until they posted it really until that okay, there's a test I could take. So and now I think people, there's no word of mouth, right? If somebody were to ask me, like my son, he took the test and he fared well on it. But he didn't take it, and I said, listen, I don't blame you at all. I get it, and I totally understand. He ended up becoming a cop out in Texas. So, but so I told him, I don't listen. It's no slight on me if you don't take it. I'm not gonna be like, you should have taken it or whatever. So,
when was that, Chief? What year did your son? What was that?
he's been in Texas, I think 7 years. So, yeah, what was that?
Recent. Yeah, so recent.
Yeah, no, recently, yeah. And my stepson, I told them, I said, I would rather be a New York State trooper or FDNY than take the NYPD. It's the same advice. Those two, they didn't even take the test, my two stepsons, because they were like, you know, my wife and I both talked them out of it. It's like, there's no way it's worth it. And you're right. You know, years ago, that's where you would, you know, you would be proud that, hey, this is my son, you know, and then he's going to be an NYPD cop or whatever. But and
I'm sure you figured having sons, right, and a stepson, that you would have a deity of service with the NYPD, right? Especially since you made it to deputy chief, and now your son is working in Texas. So speaking of Texas, right, most of it's a red state except for Austin, Texas. So what's the treatment like? What are you getting from your son? How is he being treated as a cop from the public, from the administration in Texas, and compared to what you see right now? You know, what's going on?
He loves it. He loves it because first of all, the public love him, right? And he gets treated with respect by everybody, with all everybody in his police department. I think it's 100. He's been by College Station, by Bryan, Texas there. So he loves it. It's a great job, and respect by everybody. The bosses are all good. The only thing is the only downfall for a job is it's smaller, right? So there's less movement, right? Less promotion opportunities, less things. So, but he's really enjoying it. He's trying to get on a SWAT team and stuff. So it's all good. It's I tell him, he tells me stories, and I'm like, you did that? Like, you could do that? And he's like, yeah, no, we did that. It's like, oh, okay. I don't think, I don't know about in the city, but good for you. I have to go in a different mindset, because when he tells me something, like, dude, you're gonna get, like, is he gonna be all right with that? And he's like,
is he doing pit maneuvers?
He's doing everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was speaking to Jacksonville narcotics team, and they were telling me how they operate, and I was like, yeah, we can't, I was like, we got to get warrants for this, we got to get warrants for that. They're like, no, we just, we go off of it, and I was just shocked, and it's like, it's a different world. Policing's a different world outside of New York. I personally think, like, with the recruitment, Chris Dabrowski was asking, what's the real problem of getting people to join? And in my opinion, I think that people aren't joining now because they don't believe that in New York City they could effectively do the job that they're being asked to do. Go out on the streets of New York, provide public safety, answer these 911 jobs. I mean, I think even if you don't go out and do proactive police work and you respond to 911 calls, I think, people are afraid of even doing that at this point. And I think, it's sad. Like, you rose all the way up to the, you had a great career. You rise all the way up to the rank of deputy chief. And it's sad that, like, you should have a legacy in the NYPD right now. At least three more people. And that's, like, it's invaluable experience lost, because you would have passed things down to them. They would have passed things down to other people. And now that's lost. Now we have, one of them's in Texas, and the other two are out of the profession totally. So that's a sad state of affairs. What are your thoughts about that, Chief? Though, like, what do you think? Like, what do you think? Like, why do you think people aren't joining now? Young men and women. Like, why are they not signing up? And why is us, as, like, retired members of the service, telling our children not to become NYPD cops?
I think because the fact is, right, so the laws are against the cops, right? The revolving door of arrests. So the bail reform, you're literally locking somebody up, and they're getting right put back on the street. So where do you see the progress? Where do you see the reward? And I just think there's a lot of factors that push you down and push you not to do anything. So there used to be cops, that would drive around and not do anything, right? So, and I used to call them, like, mailmen with guns. You're just like literally driving around delivering, nothing to anybody. So, but there's no incentive to be even active, at a certain point. So, I mean, are you risk? What's the risk versus the reward? And I just don't think that. And obviously, you look at the recruitment videos. I mean, are you really kidding me? The guy walking out of the subway and stuff, and this is going to make people want to come. I mean, no, that's not what it is. So I think there's so many factors that you just push you against it. And I think it's not the money, right? Because they all got raises. I think they fared pretty well with a couple of when I started, I think that it was like 21,000. So I wasn't planning on making it rich. I was just happy I got the job. So, but yeah, the recruitment. I don't think the recruitment's really there either. I don't think they're putting a good emphasis on it. I always said that, you got to get people to want the job. And if you're not, and a big thing is if you don't have the voice of the people that are on the job to say, come and join us, it's not going to happen. If everybody says you're out of your mind, I mean, that's what I would say right now. You're out of your mind to take that job right now. There's no way. So if people say that, why would you even look at it? That's it. There's other ways. There's other law enforcement. And I would tell people, if you're going to take the job, take it. Don't have a short-term plan, right? So take it for 5 years and then go look. Other law enforcements are offering like major incentives to just come and join their departments. You get sign-on bonuses and stuff. So why would you go there and risk it? And that's what I would do.
And it's a shame. Yeah. It's a shame, Chief, because this is what's happening not just in the NYPD but in blue cities across the country. We got a great friend on the podcast right now making a comment here, Patrick Jordan. He was also a chief just like you in Los Angeles County, which pretty much mirrors the NYPD. And he says, I was a second-generation law enforcement officer. My son is the president of a construction company. Daughter's a nurse. I'm very happy. It's a shame because here we are, right? You were a deputy chief of the NYPD. He was a chief in Los Angeles County, two of the largest police departments in the entire country, and you're sending your offspring to different professions or different agencies within the country. So it's really interesting to see that, and that's what John and I talked about. We lost the best recruitment tool, which I always say is a deity, right? Because having a deity and having a lineage of law enforcement is generation to generation. So what I'd like to also segue into now, at this point, you took the test in 83, you came on the job at 87, and this is at the height of corruption in the NYPD. You had the corruption in 75 to 77, eventually in 92, which is close, right? 94, you make sergeant. 92, Michael Dowd is now questioned in the Motley Commission. A lot of stuff is exposed about corruption. So what did you see back then? What was going on with corruption? Obviously, that was on a different level. Now we see it's with the leadership of the NYPD. What did you see? What was the response of the NYPD? What was the response of the administration in comparison to what you see right now? And what are your thoughts on the corruption right now, potentially seeping through the upper echelon and some of the scandals that have broke as we speak?
Right. So, as a cop, you hear about the corruption and stuff, and you say, well, some of it you can't believe, like, right? You see Michael Dowd's saying that he's doing lines of coke on the dashboard of the RMP, and it's appalling. It's like, how does that even happen? Like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Obviously, it's insanity. How does that even happen? And then you see, like, the guys in the 3-0, right? The dirty 30 and stuff. It was like you see cops getting, it's embarrassing, because you see cops getting marched out of a precinct, by other, I guess, guys from IEB or whoever was arresting them and walking them out. And it's like, it tarnishes everybody's reputation, because you could see people start looking at you differently. And then, people are asking, are you all right? You going to be all right? It's like, I'm not even involved in any of that. It's sad that it spiraled to that position. When I was in the 4-1, we had two guys that were really active guys. They made a lot of gun collars, and me and my partner, we didn't understand, like, how are they bringing all these guns in, right? So then we find out that one of the guys gets collared because he's riding shotgun to a drug dealer. He's like providing protection with the drugs in the car, providing protection that if this guy gets pulled over, he's going to show his tin and say, hey, I'm on the job or whatever, and everything's good. And that ends up leading to both of them getting arrested. And what they were doing is the drug dealers that they were, moving drugs for, were actually giving them information on the competition who had guns. It's like, hey, the guy on the block is he's carrying a Tech 9 or whatever. So it was like, it was like, it was crazy. That hit so close. It's like, Jesus, like you don't know if you don't see it, but you question it. It's like, how come these guys are so active? How come they're so productive when you really got to hunt for a collar or whatever. So, but it definitely it tarnishes everybody, and you don't want to see that. So
Did you ever, Chief? Did you ever work around anybody that was arrested or removed from the job for corruption? Like in your time, you ever had to deal in supervision or anything? Had any issues with that?
No, I never had that where everybody, no corruption or anything. So
Or was it pushed to those commands, particularly where the problems were in the 7-5 and the 30th? Like, how was corruption then? How did you perceive it? Like
yeah, I agree. I think it was confined to those particular little areas. I don't think there was widespread corruption. Don't forget in that time it was, we weren't supposed to make drug hollers, right? If you're on patrol and you see a drug transaction, and I'm in the 4-1, right? So they're literally like they got everybody's they're pitching each other drugs on the streets. They're dealing out of abandoned buildings, and you're supposed to put the blinders on and drive by. But a lot of that corruption stemmed from I guess drugs and the fast money that people were making. So it became their objective was to get the money or whatever. But yeah, it would never really. It was always localized to those particular precincts. I don't think it was like widespread throughout the whole city. So.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but the take was they didn't want patrol officers or like regular enforcement making drug arrests to avoid corruption. Is that what the thinking was behind that? And like, would you guys, like, what was the mindset behind that? And what did you guys think about that? Like as officers, like that you guys were told not to do this.
Yeah, I thought it was insane. It's like how are you gonna do that? Like you want me to drive past somebody who's dealing drugs? Like I know he's dealing drugs and just drive by them. I mean, yeah, that was their thought process was, hey, there's too much corruption. There's too much this and that, and you're gonna get involved and stuff. So just basically drive by. It was like I never really understood it as to why they would want you just to drive by. And then, finally, I think it was under Giuliani or whatever that said, take the handcuffs off and you can start making collars and stuff. So, but yeah, it was to me, it was a bizarre type of thing. It's like, look the other way. The only other time that happened when I was working a West Indian Day parade, and this captain comes out and he goes, so there's going to be recreational gunfire. I go, what? What is that? He goes, you're going to see, and he's talking to a big group of guys. He goes, you're going to see guys come out on their porch and just shoot their gun up in the air. And he goes, that's not criminal. That's just them expressing their happiness for the West Indian Day parade. I'm like, for real? I says, all right, but I understand that, but that's not look the other way. I'm not letting anybody shoot a gun off and look the other way. So
that's why, unfortunately, the NYPD has been, it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's been plagued with failed leadership over many years, right? And there's some good leadership, right? You can kind of go around the police department before now. I mean, right now it's just completely, it's out of control. But before this administration, you go around and you could say, and you probably thought the same thing. I know John and I talk about it. The job was based about people. If you're working with the right people, the right leadership, the job is great. If you're with some bad leaders, and which was your driving force to move up. So, and I see the response to the job is no surprise. The response back then was, instead of let's fix the problem and let's weed out corruption and let's educate our police officers so that they can actually help out with public safety and make drug arrests, their answer was a Band-Aid and let's just completely avoid it, which I think is completely idiotic. So you explained their response. So back then, it was isolated to the cops when we talk about this corruption with Michael Dow, the cops in the 7-7, the Dirty 30. But right now, what we see is with the upper echelon. So how do you view this right now, this potential corruption that could seep through the entire department in comparison to when you were on? It was isolated. You had a commission. You were able to keep moving on. What are your thoughts? And what do you see right now? How do you feel about this?
So I feel that right now we talk about like white shirt immunity. And that definitely exists. That's no doubt. I mean, I got promoted to deputy chief with Miguel Iglesias, and I truthfully, he's a great guy. He's nice, but he's put in that position so that he can make sure none of that corruption even got reported. That's my view. It's like, hey, this guy's a great guy. Let's put him in, and then we can control him checking out what we do, and then we could do whatever we want, right? So I see these guys just out of control, right? They think they're the kings of the world, holier than now. I'm going to be able to do what I want to do, and everybody else, you follow the rules because they're the rules, and we don't have to because we make the rules. And it's sad. It's a sad state of affair, right? Leadership through example. There's no leadership there because it's a piss poor example. They don't know what they're doing. And like you said, are they all promoted because of rocker fuel? Or were they just put in there? Yeah, they were. Hey, were they nice guys? Yeah, but what was their real leadership? Could they speak good at the podium? Were they, oh yeah, they did a great job. Let's promote them. Or were they the right guys that they wanted at the right time? And let's not look at leadership. Let's not look at ability. But hey, this is what we have to. We're going to put up to make the department look good. So it's just a sad state of affairs that these guys are running around doing whatever the heck they want, and then they're crushing people, like Sal Greco, right? And Marlon. I mean, and it's ridiculous what they do when they do what they do, and then but if you do it, then it's a totally different story. So, it's bad.
Chief, what would you say? We got a couple of questions here. Simply E
Okay.
says a chief of department sets the tone for the men and women in the job. Who was the best chief of department that Chief Lukach worked for? And then I'm gonna ask you too. What do you feel like was the best time of your career? And I don't even mean for you personally. I mean, what do you think was the best overall time frame for that during your time on the job for the NYPD in New York City as a whole?
All right, so the best chief of department I would have to say was Joe Esposito. He was the longest running chief of department, so I had him for most of my career. I always felt that he was, straight up guy. You knew what you got from him. He was a strong leader. I just thought he was fair. You could go talk to him. You could talk to him as a cop or a boss or whatever, and he treated everybody, equally. I always thought I had the highest respect for him. Unfortunately, he passed away too from 9/11 cancer. But I thought he was the best. As far as the best time in the NYPD, I think it was, we talk about the Giuliani years. I think that was probably the best because the handcuffs are off. You could kind of, get back into it. Bratton, who I'm really, really not a big fan of. I think he's overextended his stay, in my opinion. Like, he should just shut up and retire and enjoy himself and stop trying to be the part of it. But he gave us the 9mm, right? So now I felt like, hey, I have defense, right? I have I'm not carrying a friggin' Smith & Wesson Model 10 with 6 shots in it, and they're nice enough to give me a speed loader that maybe I can, in my nerve, I can, reload. But I think after that, when the cuffs were taken off, and then we were able to do our job, and somebody was dealing drugs or something on the street, and you could collar them. I think that's when it changed, and then you saw the reduction of crime. You started to see it working. People get people off the street, incarcerate them, and then and make the streets clean. So.
Chief, these are great questions. Tom, friend to the podcast. Two
Yep.
questions here. Chief, if you had to do it all over again, would you still want to make chief? And then the other question is, from time to time, Chief, what rank did you have the most fun? I think these are good questions.
Yeah, definitely. So, in my opinion, lieutenant was the best rank because, like they always say, all right, sergeant, yeah, you got to do the work and stuff, but the lieutenant oversees all of that, and the lieutenant pushes it down, and when it's crap, the lieutenant pushes it up, right? So it was a great spot. When I first made lieutenant, though, that's when they changed it to white shirts, and it had to be a desk officer. So I was like, but eventually they went out, they pushed that back. And the other best job really was chief. I like being deputy chief. I like the responsibility of everything. And you could, I mean, citywide coverage. It was great running around, running all over the city and stuff. So it was definitely that was a good rank too. And because especially if you have people that work for you, and that makes the job a heck of a lot easier. So, but yeah, lieutenant was definitely, and I'm sure it still is, the best rank there. Lieutenant, I tell you the truth, lieutenants in ESU, they have the best job, right? So they have, two lieutenants, three lieutenants work in a platoon. They half the city, right? They got a U4, U5, so they got half the city, go wherever they want. And truthfully, they run the jobs, right? So because they're the first supervisor on the scene. I mean, there could be a sergeant from one of the trucks there, but they set it up. So when you get there, that job is like set up perfectly, and you're ready to go. So yeah, but they have a really good job.
Yeah, all right. Shout out to VSS Ventores. He donated $5 to the podcast. He says soy lattes for everyone. To you, Juju, and your made-up position. And let's give a big welcome to Billy Jean. He has a very important job in the NYPD. He's probably the highest uniform rank in the NYPD, and yet he spends his time with us daily. So thank you for being here today.
Speaking of chief departments.
But other than that, so we got 760 people with us this morning. Thank you all for joining. We got Deputy Chief Rob Lukach, retired from the NYPD, with us. So appreciate everybody for joining. If you guys have any on-topic, relevant, respectful questions, we'll bring them in. We're getting a lot of anti-police hate in here. We welcome free speech, but if you overtake the chat, we're going to kick you out. And we had to kick one person out already because he was just overtaken.
Who didn't even have a name? His name was like a couple alphabets.
Yeah. But no, Chief, thanks for joining us this morning. So what are you seeing in New York City currently? Like, what issues do you believe are facing, and what do you think's the path forward for New York City as a whole?
Right. So I think they got to change some of these laws, and you need a city council that's going to get behind the cops, because as long as they don't back you, and you have a mayor who doesn't really back you, who pretends he backs you, you're gonna have problems. And whether it's all the way up in Albany to change some of these bail reform laws, or whether it's things in the city, you have to change those so that the cops can go back out and do their jobs. I mean, these cops right now are literally handcuffed. They can't go out and do what they're supposed to do. You basically, if a guy doesn't, a perp doesn't comply, right? It's a struggle. A struggle could ensue, and the next thing you know, they're looking at you. So you have to bring the backs to the cops, because let them do their job. Hey, everybody that through the academy, they know what to do. They know what they have to do. But when you start putting restrictions on people, then it sets them back. They're not going to want to do it until that leadership changes. Until, in my opinion, Adams, if you talk about Adams, and I saw something you put on Instagram this morning about Jessica Tisch maybe leaving that again now. If she goes and this rotating door for PC, then there's no leadership. How does anybody say, oh, I can trust what's going on. I can trust the bosses up top to make the right decisions for the department. It's not going to happen. There's nothing being done right. So it's crazy.
Right now, leadership is upside down, right? You use the term because you hear me talk about it all the time. And we have members of the service that are promoted by Rocket Fuel, and they're in positions where they haven't walked through the same path that you had through Ron Layson and Rob Nabby, friends of the podcast here. they didn't walk through the same hurdles and the obstacles that you went along the way. So you learn those skills to be more of an effective leader. So if you were in a situation right now, if you work in the police department and you had to work for someone like, say, Kaz Daughtry, who becomes a deputy commissioner, doesn't have that leadership experience, how would you handle that situation? How would you handle that situation to be in that arena of politics? How would that affect you, and how would that affect your morals and values, if any? Like, how would you move forward with that? How would you handle that to have a successful career by also maintaining integrity and taking care of the rank and file and also maintain public safety? How would you handle that situation?
Yeah, so that's a really tough question, because you got to show, because of the rank, right? You got to show the respect, but you have to educate them. I mean, I had a lot of problems with when I was the ESU captain. I would get to the door, and I wouldn't want to make entry or whatever, but then the duty chief's there, and you would get so many nervous guys that they didn't want to make any moves and stuff. It's like, no, you gotta let me do what I know what I'm doing. And I trust the guys and gals in ESU that when I tell them we can go in, that we're gonna do the right thing, you know. And then I think with like a guy like Kaz Daughtry, that's hard. Are their egos so big that they don't want to listen to you? Because you have to listen to the people that are in those positions that understand what's going to happen. All right, and listen, let me do it, you know, and let me earn the respect. But don't be like, oh, I know, but there used to be an old joke. It's like, oh, when you become a chief, you go upstairs and you go to the PC's office, and he opens up this box, and this gold ray of wisdom comes up into your head, and you now know everything. You've just been ordained a chief, and now you there's no way you will ever make a mistake again, or any knowledge that you've just gained is the best. No, that's not true, right? So we're all human. We all got to learn. And you don't use your ego. Your ego doesn't leave, like, what's the old saying? Leave your ego at the door. This is police work. All right. Let the men and women who do the work, let them do what they know best to do. Trust.
Chief, could you talk about that a little bit? So you went to ESU, but you were never there as a cop, a sergeant, a lieutenant. Like, how much did you have to rely on the expertise of the people who were technically your subordinates? But like, how was that transition for you? And like, what was that like leading when, on that they're experts. You kind of touched on it already. Like, how was that balance for you? How'd you feel coming in as an executive without getting the opportunity to do it at the lower rank? And like, what was like the decision-making process for you there? Like, when you had to make big calls, because obviously executive in ESU, you're the point man, right?
Right. Yeah, so you got to be humble, right? Because now I'm coming in, I have no prior experience. So I would more inquisitive, right? So I was like, hey, what are we gonna do, and what's next? So you understand that, and those guys and gals, they're great, because they'll tell you, listen, this is what we want to do, this is how we're gonna do it, and this is what we're gonna do. So you got to trust their knowledge and their experience, because I don't have that. I haven't gained it yet, right? So I'm listening, and I'm keeping my mouth shut and my eyes open. I'm watching. Same as I tell when a rookie cop comes into a precinct. Keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open. Nobody wants to hear how great you are, or what you did before you became a cop. Listen to what we do, because we know we've already been there. So yeah, it takes a little bit of a transition, So, and you gotta gain their trust. That was my big thing with the ESU guys and gals. You gotta learn to gain their trust. So I would listen to what they wanted to do, and they would say, out of respect, they would be like, all right, Cap, are we good with this? Yeah, we're good. I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Sure, yeah, you're good. I'm just gonna say yes no matter what. But they respectfully said, they asked me, and then you learn, right? So then later on, I'm able to go through a couple of the tactics courses, the rope course, the scuba course, and I learn all the skills and everything. So obviously, to better understand it and almost like be like the safety officer, right? I always felt like I was the safety officer, to make sure everything's done right and to protect those guys and gals to make sure that they went home in the end of the day, that they set everything in tone, then eventually, as I became used to it and understood it and experienced those jobs, because I was going on the big jobs, right? I wasn't going on the pin jobs. I wasn't going on, the water, much of the water rescues and stuff, unless it was really a big water rescue. But I was going on with the helicopter crashes, the plane crashes, the barricaded EDPs, the barricaded perps with guns. So I was gaining all that experience and understanding. Okay, so and then I started to feeling confident. It took a while, obviously. First of all, I was on this ESU high too. I was like, "Hey, I'm in ESU, man." I was the happiest I could be. I was like, "This is good." And then once you did, then I came up with things that I felt would best serve ESU. Like I would say, all right, well, if the guy has a gun in his hand, we're not going to make entry, right? Because we're forcing the gunplay. Let's put in some cameras. The scouts, roaming cameras, the pole cameras. Let's keep an eye on this guy. And when he puts the gun down, which eventually they all do, right, or whatever, then we make entry. So, you gotta do that. You gotta make sure that everybody's safe. So, in fact, one of the first jobs, it cracks me up when you guys talk about Kaz Daughtry and his drones. One of my jobs in the 8-4. We had a guy who was up on the 18th floor, right? He had a gun or whatever, and he threatened cops, and the 8-4 cops immediately, pulled the door and they tied off the job, and they did a great job securing him in there, right? So we get up there. He's 18 floors up. You can't get any cameras in. So Taru comes and they take a drone and they literally bring the drone up and they're looking in the guy's window. So they tell me that the guy's looking at the drone or whatever, he's pointing a gun at the drone, and then he puts the gun down and he comes to the door. So as soon as they tell me that, I go in, because the gun's far away. It ended up being a fake gun or whatever, but it was like we're using drones. This is not.
What year was that?
That had to be 6 or 7 years ago. It had to be. It's not like.
So while Kaz Daughtry was still wearing white gloves, driving around.
Yeah,
imagine.
Yeah.
As a detective.
So he didn't invent drones. Okay.
No.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy 10-7, $1.99 to the podcast. He leads it into the question. So he says, just make Kaz the PC already. He's a modern day Jack Maple.
Yeah, right.
What do you think about that? I mean, Adams recently did an interview with retired Inspector Corey Pegues, and he compared Kaz Daughtry to Jack Maple, who was the brainchild of Comstat. And really broken windows.
Yeah, no, I mean, look at Jack Maples, right? A lieutenant in transit comes up, starts up just with pin maps and stuff, and it changes the whole police department. And wait, Kaz Daughtry's coming up with what, drones? Wait, that we already had? Yeah, okay. It's insanity. How do you compare the two? There's no comparison. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was Jack Maple, who was well ahead of the times, transitioned the whole department into fighting crime and making true reduction, putting cops on the map where the pins were, where the problems were. But yeah, you want to fly drones in the subway system? Yeah, that's going to save a lot, So come on, nah, I don't know, it's not right. So and make a comparison to that. No, it doesn't even hold water, nothing. It's sad.
What are your thoughts? So obviously, you're a friend to the podcast. You listen to a lot of stuff going on here, and you can see the comparison, right? When you started with the NYPD, it wasn't social media driven, and you morphed into this social media era. What did you think as far as the upper echelon, as far as how many mouthpieces should there be on social media? Should it be one mouthpiece in comparison to what we see now, where there's different MCs of the NYPD all over social media? We've had pissing matches with John Shell, and when he was chief of patrol, now chief of department, with journalists, on social media. What is your take on that? Do you like that? Do you think that the upper echelon should engage the journalist and public in that manner? Do you think it should be one voice? Do you think they should be more stoic? Do you think that's good they're fighting back? What are your thoughts on that?
So I personally like any job. I always felt like I would always interview right with the media right after the job, just to get a statement out or whatever, and then I would call DCPI and say, hey, listen, I just spoke to the media or whatever. It's too late. I already did. But with all the other media fighting back, listen, the news can be your friend, right? The news people can be help you. You don't go tit for tat with them. I don't think there's necessity to fight back, and I think the department put too big of an emphasis on Twitter. They had every CO has a Twitter spot, and believe it or not, it was competitive. Like it was like, why did this guy not have this many tweets out? Why did he, and it became where, I got to make sure I get one or two tweets out a week. And some of the tweets are so stupid. Like I look at them as like, it's like, really? It's like, you did this and, we brought coffee and donuts to the, with this.
Bring coffee and donuts to the podcast. I say it all the time. I'm so glad you said that, because I told John when we started this podcast, I said, dude, it came to the point where these captains, they're just having a competition who's got a better Twitter page.
Right.
What is going on here?
That's all it is. It's like ridiculous, It's like, are you for real?
Yeah, crazy. So, Chief, I see a lot of comments in here, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. Often we hear, we continuously hear broken windows policing being demonized. There's this thing going on across America, really, where we even have cops who are now mayors pushing this ideology that crime had just dropped, that there was a phenomenon across America where crime just dropped. It's not related to anything. It's just a phenomena. Do you believe that broken windows directly impacted crime? And do you believe it's something that the NYPD and law enforcement as a whole should partake in currently?
Yeah, so I firmly believe it had a big impact, right? So when you start making a particular block or neighborhood look nice, and you start enforcing the little BS that happens, then it has a direct impact on whether or not somebody's going to commit a bigger crime there. So I firmly believe that it was definitely it worked. It was important. When I got to the 441, there was graffiti all over, Savage Skull insignia up. There was, they were abandoned buildings. So when you start making that community look better and putting people in there and cleaning up, it definitely has an effect. First of all, I think it gives pride to the people that live there, right? Because now they're not living in this neighborhood where nobody really cares about. And now it gives pride to the cops that are patrolling it. Like, hey, the people in the neighborhood care. The people in the neighborhood want me to do this enforcement, and it's going to stop. Now, did it get a little? It got excessive though. That was the problem. Like in my opinion, if some guy is having a beer and he's sitting on his stoop, right? Because he wants to come out from his apartment or whatever. I don't necessarily know that was the guy that we were giving a C summons to, So, but if you're walking around and you had a beer or whatever, yeah, then that starts to tone. That's all little hanging fruit, but it's gonna protect it all in the end. So yeah, I think it definitely worked. I think it was important, and I think that if you wherever you are, whatever neighborhood you're on, you want the same. When people start leaving garbage out and start disrespecting the neighborhood, it has an adverse effect on everybody there. It doesn't look good. So yeah, I think it was definitely important.
Well, shout out to Tom Coffee and Donuts, $1.99. Why did all chiefs follow the illegal COVID mandate? Hold off before you answer that. Patrick Donahue, shout out Coffee and Donuts, $19.99. Range Cookies, Woe Hop, and Jeremy's foam cups for the men and women of ESU.
There you go.
The real dream team. That's right. The public and cops kept them safe. Rich Rod, $20, Coffee and Donuts. Great show, guys, with Chief Lukach. I think we got it right this time.
That's it.
Enjoy your retirement, Chief, and God bless. Chief, you've been doing an awesome job. Do you want to answer that? I know that you retired before the mandate, but you know what? What are your thoughts on that as far as the NYPD following the Eric Adams administration as far as actually terminating cops with this mandate? What are your thoughts on that?
And Chief, before you go, just so you know, there was some ESU guys that I talked to them behind the scenes that they were forced out too over the mandate. So what were your thoughts about the mandate, how it was handled, how it's currently being handled?
Yeah, so I don't believe in the mandate. My wife is definitely against the mandate. She made sure our kids didn't get it. She was adamant about it. My wife's Jewish, so she Jewish exemption, and I and I think that it was unfair, right, to make people take a shot that we were unfamiliar with. We didn't know the adverse effects of it, and what was gonna happen. So I think they overreacted, and they don't. Again, like I had spoken to John yesterday about, they hate to rescind what they say. They're so afraid to say that they were wrong, and they will never retract anything. They'll continually fight because that they got the bigger purse strings or whatever, so they're just going to keep trying to wear you out. But they were wrong. I mean, first of all, in my opinion, in the NYPD, if you don't want to take the vax, don't take it, right? So what could we have done? Could you have taken and put people in different other positions where they weren't exposed to the public or wherever else, or whatever their worry was? And since our department was so big, why not do that? Why not take care of everybody? But to start terminating people for that, I don't see it. And I also blame the unions in that part, because here you got members that when you talk about them, the department saying you got to do this and you got to do that, the unions will jump in and say, well, that's a contractual thing. You're changing the job description, you're changing the requirements. So why are you doing this? And where were they with this? I mean, I didn't hear anything from them. It was just like, take the vaccination. But I think I truthfully, and I firmly agree, and I listen to the podcast all the time. Everybody that was, either terminated or required to leave because they wouldn't take should be reinstated with back pay. Absolutely. It wasn't their fault, and it was a thing that they just threw in there, to what? To who were they really listening to? De Blasio and then Adams. I mean, there was no real, when you guys talked about it yesterday, or I don't know, it might have been on the news, like Adams is, I'm not Adams, de Blasio is eating a cheeseburger and say, get a COVID vax shot and we get a free cheeseburger and French fries. I go, this guy's a tool bag. I mean, you got to be kidding me, So yeah, no, I totally disagree with it, and it should have been up to the individual, thing. And we know for a fact that the vaccination didn't work, right? Because people got vaccinated and they still caught COVID. I personally feel that most of the deaths that occurred as a result of COVID was because of poor medical interdiction, right? When you start putting people on ventilators and you leave them on ventilators, it's not going to work. I knew who was Ray Spinella, right? He got really, really sick with COVID, and he just went on oxygen therapy, and he got better. It was, that was it. They didn't try new stuff. They thought this vaccination was the cure all, which it wasn't. So
all right, let's slow it down with that, because they're gonna pull us down with this. Slow
Chief,
down with that. You're gonna take it down on
right.
all the platforms. I agree with you totally, though.
Absolutely.
I agree with you absolutely, totally, 100%. Shout out to Alabre Realty 299 to the podcast, Chief. So another thing about broken windows, because Tabitha, I see a comment. She said, I don't support broken windows unless it's brought. Tabitha Foster, I don't know if you're familiar with Tabitha and her case against Jeffrey Madry, but Tabitha was a member of the service as well, too. And she says she doesn't support broken windows unless it's done equally throughout all communities. I've spoken myself. I grew up in 2 Italian communities. I grew up I grew up in the Mid Island section of Staten Island, which was a mainly Italian Irish neighborhood, and I grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, which was a very Italian neighborhood at the time. I had broken windows implemented on me as a child. I seen it go throughout my neighborhood, and I've always told everyone I've been stopped, questioned, and frisked more times than I believe most people ever in any community, and I've been arrested twice policing, for minor nonsense, and I was stopped often in times I felt. I personally feel, through my experience in New York City and then deploying it as a police officer, I personally feel that broken windows was utilized in every command, in every community throughout New York City. And the places where crime was the highest, obviously, you saw the higher crimes being charged and people being arrested for them. What are your thoughts about broken windows? Do you feel that it targeted certain communities differently, or do you feel that this was a strategy that was used throughout the NYPD?
Well, I think it was a strategy that was used across the city in itself, because I mean, when you went on the CompStat, there was accountability on how many CSUMs and what you were doing. So I don't think that it was just targeted to specific communities. Were there communities where maybe there was more offenses being committed than other communities? Yeah, I kind of believe that. I mean, that may have happened. But yeah, and I agree. It should be across the board. It shouldn't be any particular thing. So yeah, if there's a group in a particular precinct that are drinking or doing whatever they're doing, yes, they should enforce that. If it's another community, yeah, it should be equally enforced. So if you go one, it should be citywide thing. You can't cherry pick which locations you are. But yeah, could there be a disparaging amount of numbers in one particular precinct as opposed to another? Yeah, because it depends on the offenses. If it's not happening in one particular precinct, you can't make it happen, right? And if you're doing the enforcement in the other game, you're getting bigger numbers. But yeah, it's got to be done equally across the board. And it would totally be unfair if it wasn't actually enforced that way. So I don't remember ever seeing anything where it wasn't enforced in one particular precinct or the other, but it could have been, but it shouldn't. It definitely shouldn't have been. It should have been across the board.
I see it with my own eyes. I moved around a lot as a kid. My parents they like to move around, but I grew up mostly in Staten Island. I lived in Brooklyn. As an adult, I lived in the Bronx almost a decade, but growing up, I lived mostly in Stapleton in Staten Island. It's a majority black neighborhood. And I was happy the cops were there because it was pretty violent. There was a lot of stuff going on there. And I think that according to CompStat, and I saw it myself. I saw it as a kid growing up, living in Stapleton, and, you're hearing gunshots, and the cops were out there doing their job, doing intrusive police work. And, I saw it myself being a special operations lieutenant, according to CompStat, addressing crime trends as they came up. So I think intrusive police work is the bedrock and foundation to public safety. I say it all the time here.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I want to talk about this. Obviously being the most complained cop, you retired around the height of the change of legislation that really impacted careers when it comes to CCRB. 2018. What year did you retire again? What exactly?
2022, but I had like a year on the book. So
right. So at that time was really the change. 2021 is the commencement of the disciplinary matrix. So my career was really impacted from CCRB. And what we see now also, you talked about lieutenants being the best rank. A lot of lieutenants in ESU are getting civilian complaints and some serious charges for actually involuntarily removing an emotionally disturbed person, as ESU should do, right? So a lot of times right now, what we would see towards the end of my career is ESU would be hesitant on responding to certain jobs for that reason. They had to protect their people because of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. So how did you and how would you now protect your cops and protect your people from the Civilian Complaint Review Board? And my argument has been that the upper echelon could do more and to protect the guys, because they do. When it comes to khaki pants, which is a different tier, have different amenities, they're protected with the Civilian Complaint Review Board. So how did you protect your guys? How do you feel about ESU members are getting complaints for involuntarily removing people that are threatening to kill others kill themselves, it's a dampering job right now. So how would you help them? How did you combat that back then?
Okay, so that's a great question. And what we used to do is there was a sergeant, Jerry Flood. He was in charge of the A team, and because they used to get civilian complaints on just regular warrants, right? The civilian board would be like, well, why'd you smash the door down? Why'd you do this? And that's similar to EDPs, right? So you're making your entry and you're getting to put the person in custody. So what he used to do is he used to go down and speak to all the investigators in CCRB. So they understood exactly our protocol and what the men and women from ESU do and why they did it. So they educated these people and then they understood. So now when they're doing, because basically, look, if you think about it, you hire this investigator, has no idea. And then the next thing you hear is like, oh, ESU pushed open the door. They took this nonviolent EDP into custody and basically put him in handcuffs and took him to the hospital and they basically like incarcerated him medically, whatever, right? So, but what we did is the educating those investigators so they understood what had transpired and why ESU did what they're supposed to do. Now, if I was in the upper echelons of the police department, if I was the PC or something, listen, I would talk to the mayor. I'd say, these got to be taken away. They shouldn't even be investigated. If we're following a patrol guy to the T, and ESU is following all their tactics, there's not even there should be no chance of investigation. It's not necessary. All right. There's no misconduct. There's no abuse of authority. There's no whatever force by putting the person in the custody is all justified. There's no need for these things. And you're right. The problem is that then you end up putting too many CCRBs, right? So then are we going to put the guy in monitoring? Are we're gonna take him off the stack? Is he not going to be lined up as part of the entry team? Because when I used to go to those force meetings, they would say, oh, why did this guy have so many force reports? Well, first of all, you're mandating that we do these force reports. That's the first thing, right? Come on. So you're telling me that the lead bunker, or even the guy that's the hands on the stack that's cuffing him and pushing him down, then he's gonna get the force report. And then you're gonna say, well, that guy has too many force reports. You go to like a truck 7, right, from the 7.5, or a truck 8, truck 6. That's all they're dealing with, So how do you do that? It's unfair and unjust. And I'm not going to put somebody on monitoring, and I'm not going to tell somebody that they can't be on the team when those are the guys that are doing and girls that are doing the work. It's just insanity. So there has to be something from the top that it's restructured, or that is definitely changed. That there's no need to investigate that. If and that's for the cops on the street too. If you do your job the right way. And the other thing is, like you had spoken about a couple of podcasts ago, if you get exonerated or that's it. It should be removed from your record. Don't leave it on there, because that when you open up that 50A and you like you said, you go to a job later on in life, all those things are on there, and it's totally unjust. It's not right. So that's how I would do. I would do either educate the CCRB guys, make sure that the investigators know exactly what we do, and then if I would appeal to the upper echelons that you gotta change this. This is not good. It's not conducive of the work that we do to punish the people that do the proper work. It doesn't make sense.
It's 100%. That's exactly what's going on. They're literally attacking and demonizing the people who partake in the core mission, and they're like basically peppering up their record with a bunch of nonsense. And when you look backwards, you're like, oh, this looks horrible. But if you really know the ins and outs of it, you're like, oh, no, that they actually did absolutely nothing wrong, and everything was cleared and everything's fine. So honestly, that was the point of that. That was the point of doing this, and no one has yet to admit it. So, but we're seeing the effects of it now. I mean, Eric Dim, I think, is the clearest example of that. So shout out to Arbad 999 to the podcast. He says, good morning, Chief, lieutenants in chat. For Deputy Chief Lukach, in your opinion, who would be the best selection for police commissioner? And is there any turning things around? I just want to add to that too. When you ask like who would be the best police commissioner, I also would like to hear your opinion on the appointment of Jessica Tisch and how you look at that.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, I like Ron Leeson. I think he'd be a great police commissioner, but it's hard to say because you want somebody, in my opinion, in the department, right? Somebody that's come up to the ranks, understand everything, and pick it. But hey, happy birthday, Eric. Hey,
thank you. Yeah, I don't want to mention it, take it away because you're doing such a great job, but I don't want to take it away. It's your day to memorialize your career. But yeah, 45 today. Thank you so much. Thanks, Bob.
You don't look a day over 55, Eric.
That's it.
I got the hat on. I come with the grace.
You Agent Doggy is, bro.
So it should be milk and birthday cake then, really, right? Instead of coffee and donuts.
Let's get you're right. Let's get cake and ice cream.
So yeah, somebody.
How much did you pay Isabella to put this up? It says, "Happy birthday, Lieutenant Dan.
Isabel,
I wish you all the best. You are my best boss."
Yeah, I should.
See, wishes come true. That's what Eric was wishing for. But yeah, so I mean, I'm out of the department now, but somebody that's within the department that has the knowledge and understanding. I don't like outside guys are good, if they have the experience, but it's an animal of its own, so you got to know all the stuff within the department. So I other than Ron Leeson, I can't give you a name, but I'm definitely pushing for him. So. Jessica Tisch, man. Oh, dude. I used to go to those the all-ins where they would bring all the executives to the police academy in Queens, and they'd have us, like, people would do lectures and stuff, and she would come up and do lectures about all the tech lectures and about the new phones and everything else. And for some reason, they always put her on after lunch. And I was like, dude, it was like you had to stand up and pinch yourself because you were falling asleep. Even with that whiny voice, you were still dying. It was crazy. You
got the bedtime story.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't see her knowledge. I don't see her experience. It's just how do you take leadership from somebody that? I mean, really, what's your law enforcement experience? Running the tech unit and stuff. I mean, come on, that's what it's all about. And what? Yeah, she was put over to sanitation to say, hey, let her be a commissioner, and then I could bring her back. And yeah, is it daddy's money and stuff? We used to say that even then. It's like, and she used to say it. I think she at some of the meetings, she would be like, yeah, even the Giants aren't playing that good or whatever. I was like, come on. So it's like, yeah, I was never really impressed with her. And I don't think she deserves to be the police commissioner of the NYPD. No way, no how.
Well, we're talking about deserving. So at this point, she is the police commissioner. And so what do you think about how she's been handling things so far as this corruption scandal? Do you see her as being this white horse? Do you see her being a patsy for Adams? Do you see her being a puppet for Adams? Do you see that she's actually the one to expose corruption? What are your thoughts on her position so far?
So I see her sitting at the desk, upstairs on the 14th floor, and people bringing stuff in. Hey, look what we found. This, and that. I see her saying, this, that, and that. I don't see many decisions coming from her. I think she's just the recipient of the things, the downward turn of the department and the crap that's falling in her lap. She's not turning. Prime example is John Shell becoming the chief of department. Like if you knew everything that had happened, and you knew how Shell was associated with Madry, how do you make him the chief of department? How does that come to tuition? That's not any manager would say, there's no way. I gotta turn in something new. I gotta look for better. So I mean, putting him there is we know that's Adams. So Adams is just running the same stuff. It's not being run by her. She's just a patsy for that. And is she put in there because of her money? Yeah, I guarantee you. You know that's all it was. It was for political purposes. And like you guys have mentioned numerous times, is it for her to become the mayor? Is it for her, for a governor or whatever? I mean, there's something bigger for her, right? So, but I was never a fan of hers, never impressed by, the presentations would kill me. I would like, I would circle the itinerary when it said her name. I was like, maybe I guess more coffee or go downstairs or do something. I don't want to be there for that. So yeah, no, I don't. I know it's not her. She's not doing anything, So
So, you touched on it there. Like, we've seen numerous corruption scandals break out, and normally when people are eyed by the feds, they're swiftly modified, moved to other positions. It hasn't happened in this administration. I mean, because I think, almost the entirety of the upper echelon of the NYPD would be modified without a badge and a gun. So, I mean, I guess that's the reasoning they haven't done it. But what do you think about what you heard about the overtime scandal and trading the sex for overtime? And obviously, listen, these are allegations. We don't know that they're true or not, but we do know one thing: there was an egregious amount of overtime being given out. Do you, like, you were a deputy chief in ESU? Do you feel that overtime could have been that excessive by any of your members without you knowing about it?
no way, no how. This is the guys in ESU used to call me No Cash. Okay.
And the whole time I've been saying your name wrong. This is the part I miss about the job.
No cash.
No cash. Because this is what would happen. So we had our overtime control was like this. So if you put an overtime slip in, you'd have to call the desk, which is down at Floyd Benefield, and get a log number. And once you got the log number, then payroll would enter it in and you'd get paid, right? So it was advantageous to get that log number and get it in. If you didn't get the log number, we'd have to, investigate why this slip came down with no log number. After payroll got that, then my ICO had a great assistant and put everything in a whole database. So every day I would get a printout of how much overtime everybody got through, over 400 guys in the unit. I would have a printout of what everybody did. And our cap at that time was 35. So anybody went over 35, I would tell them, okay, no more overtime. I'm stopping any detail overtime. So they used to do Torch and Hercules, and that's where they deployed in heavy weapons and go to iconic locations or down in the subway. So they would get no more Torch, they would get no more Hercules overtime, they would get no more detail overtime until the next month, and then if they went over the next month, then I would continue that. Then you cut them back on any type of operational, like, all right, let's say the guy's on a big job, all right, time to go home. It's, we'll backfill you with somebody else. So those overtime methods were always there. And yeah, did guys test it? Yeah, the guys, of course, that's the cops do, right? They test it, they see how far they can go. And when guys were retiring, if they weren't going to work that last month, let's say they were only going to work January, February, but they weren't going to March, yeah, then I would say, go ahead, go to the 105 for the quarter, because I know you're not going to be here for the quarter, so I'll work that out. So you worked with the guys, and they were all happy about it, and they followed the rules, and when I would cut somebody, then that's when I would get, oh look, there's Chief No Cash again. He's back. He cut me off. So, but it worked. And then they also, the variance report would come down every 2 weeks on how much you could spend and how much your overages was. So I don't see, there's no way that they didn't know what was going on in that office or anywhere else on the job, that these people weren't getting the overtime. And like I said before, if they did know, they had a duty to report it and tell people, hey, this person's at. I guarantee you, that it was, hey, don't touch this person. This is my girl. This is my guy. Don't touch them. Let them get as much overtime. I'll deal with it later on. I'm the chief of department, or I'm this, or I'm that. That's what it was. It was a complete oversight. It was not. It was not done, you know, by mistake or anything else. It was done on purpose, that they let these people go over. And the problem is they got caught through the paper, and then you know what happens? What I always say, it's the typical thing that the white shirts do. They wash their hands of it. Not me. What, that person's got the overtime? I can't. They'll yell at them. Well, I can't believe you got the overtime. And it's like, but you said I could get it. You know, so that overtime control is there to protect your people too, right? So if they tell you can only have this much and spend that much, why would you not? You know, so yeah, no, there's that was done intentionally. That was allowed, and it was unfair. Now the fact that there's somebody's doing it overtime at home, that's illegal. You know, you're not supposed to. That's crazy. So, you know.
Well, that's the bottom line, right? We talk about it in the podcast. I think we give a fair assessment. You know, we say we listen, despite the sexual scandal or anything else going on, these are all allegations. We believe people deserve due process. We believe you're innocent until proven guilty. But there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. It's factual. It's evidence-based because we all been there. We all know the data, and there's only so much that can be performed. That the overtime is just completely excessive and egregious. And we know there's numerous checks and balances in place. And you were one of those checks and balances, right? And I know Ron Layson was my boss's boss, right? And he doesn't know it, but you know, we would laugh sometimes because when exactly what you're talking about, the variance report would come out, we would laugh because we knew, you know, the CEO was going to go up into Ron Layson's office, and they got along great. But we knew we would laugh. He doesn't know it. We'd be outside the door sometimes laughing because we knew there'd be a couple shouting matches, you know, and because they were doing their job, right? There were checks and balances with this overtime. So the fact that this overtime was so excessive and performed at home just shows that there were so many people that are complicit and allowed this. And so that's why at this point, the upper echelon is not being held accountable. Tiny Consilli is the first deputy commissioner, along with the former chief of the department. They testified to New York City Council that they could perform biweekly meetings. So to me, to say you can't say you're oblivious and you're grossly incompetent, you have no idea what's going on. They completely turned the blind eye. So obviously going through the ranks, you make it the deputy chief. Ron Lace and I talk about this all the time, and he says, you know, sometimes chiefs are compartmentalized. So for you being an ESU in special operations, did you feel that job was compartmentalized, that you were confined to that world? Did you know the politics, what was going on at One Police Plaza? How delved into it were you? Like what type of, you know, politics were you involved in this transition as you moved into the upper echelon?
So the thing with becoming a deputy chief, right? So my boss, Chief Whedon, would go to the PC briefings. So when he wasn't available, then they would send me down there, and usually it was just information about the SRG anti-crime teams. They were bringing a lot of guns in, with their CO John Diadamo and stuff, doing really good police work. So we were able to talk about them. And then, ESU deployment and helping with the crime reduction. But, I would get a good view of everybody then around the table talking about, this, that, and the other thing. And, then they started talking about, mandates and things like that. And even exemptions came up. They would be like, it became the most important, thing. What's her name would say how many exemptions they were given and all of that. So the politics is really, up in that office. Like I was really saw it. Like, was there some deployment of crime? But then there was talk about different things like lawsuits and things like that. So I played into it, but as soon as I left that office, I kind of went out of my head because was I now? I was just concentrating on stuff that's going on in ESU, SOD, our own little world. So it wasn't the politics didn't really play that much into what we did, because we were more of that response, but. But yeah, no, there was some definite politics in there, you know. So you know, Mize Holder was in there, you know, telling us, you know, I first met her when they started doing the re-engineering thing with Bratton. You know, they picked me to be one of the guys doing the training, and I gave him like what I felt was really good recommendations, like really at the, you know, at a range cycle, do sort of some sort of tactics training, or every month, you know, take a platoon out of service and, you know, bring them to Randall's Island or Floyd Bennett Field and let them use the tack house. Give them some good tactical training, because what's going to save your life? Tactical training, you know, your partner and tactics. But you know, I think that kind of fell on the wayside, and then she moved up from there, you know, so you know, into equity and inclusion and stuff, and I you know, I wasn't really impressed with her either, but that was my own personal opinion. But yeah, the politics, it was heavy. It was heavy down there, you know. I felt that, you know, I think O'Neill was pretty good. You know, he played politics too. Shea was super political. Like the first, I'll give you a quick story. He was coming in as the PC. So I'm on a barricaded job with a guy with a gun. The guy's live streaming his actions. He's in the bathtub with a gun, threatening to shoot himself. So, all right. I mean, I've been there. I'm there a while now in ESU and SOD. I know what I'm doing. He has one of his like cronies come up to me and say, the PC said you're not to make entry. I'm like, really? Like, no crap. You know, what do you think? I'm gonna go in now? And, you know, come on, the guy's holding a gun. He's live streaming. It's just like this is how your administration's gonna be. Like, you don't want it to look bad because, you know, ESU went in and shot the guy, or the guy shot the ESU guys. It's like, you know, that's where the politics really, you know, fell off the wayside when they started really micromanaging what we did on our level, because there was no need for it. We're not going to embarrass anybody. They're all professional in ESU, SOD. So why would you even, like, you got to remind me that I'm not going to go in? I mean, and just from there, it was just a spiral downward, because I can remember him, you know, saying, oh, this, you know, de Blasio told me this, de Blasio said this. So I lost respect for him, but.
Well, speaking of respect, before John goes, just want to say shout out to you. Eddie Lutz says, worked with the chief when he arrived at ESU as a captain, always had our back. There's no doubt about it. First of all, you're interviewing really well. I think this interview is great. And, you know, you're just a real likable guy. And I can tell that your men and women respected you and liked you. And I'll tell you why. Because you knew your nickname. The fact that you knew it means that they liked you. You know, so shout out to our band, Coffee and Donuts, $9.99. Says, happy birthday, MCC Eric Dim. No more coffee and donuts. Ensure and boosters for the elderly. All right. Great interview today. Thanks to the deputy chief. Yeah, Chief, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Go ahead, brother. Just want to throw that in.
Yeah, so all bad. Shout out to you, all bad. $9.99 to the podcast. He says, happy birthday, MCC Eric Dim. No more coffee and donuts, and Shore and boosters for the elderly. Great interview today. Thank you to the deputy chief. No, yeah. I mean, listen, I think it's important. We appreciate you coming on. I mean, because it's I think, you know, it shows it's not really it's really a consensus of many of the retired and active people on the job what's going on. You know, it's you know, we have a lot of rank and file that are on this show, right? Lieutenants, sergeants, cops, detectives. But you know, the first person to come on that was in the executive ranks was Ron Layson. Now you. We know there's many executives that listen to this show, both past and present. And I think, you know, it's important for the public to hear, like, really the locker room talk, like how we feel as people who were actually there, regardless of our rank. And it's important that all the ranks actually come together and say how we feel, whether we agree or we don't. You know, just say, listen, this is how I feel on this topic. These are the issues. This is how I feel they are. And so we appreciate you for coming on and you know, not being afraid to give your opinion. Like, what would your advice be to like really everybody in the NYPD at this point, currently still serving, people that are looking to get promoted, people that are in the promotion rank? Like, what's your advice to them now?
Yeah, so I would always say, you know, if you're looking to get promoted, you know, commit yourself to that particular rank. So if you want to be a sergeant, learn it, study it, and then do your best on the tests. But put yourself full forward. Don't do it half-heartedly. I knew guys that said, "Oh, I'm going to take the sergeant exam," and then they didn't study or they didn't go to classes. All vitally important. I remember studying for sergeant. I had one of those, back then it was cassette tapes, right? So I would put my cassette tape in the car, and on the drive down, I would listen to this really monotone, speaker all the way down. But they, ask questions and they give you answers and stuff. So, just put yourself forward and study and then do your best. And the other thing is no matter what you want to do in the job, right? If you want to stay on patrol, that's your forte, then absolutely. Then commit yourself to it and do your best job out there. If you want to go to any unit within the NYPD, understand what they do. So if you want to go to ESU, all right, learn tactics. And you'll be taught the right tactics, what ESU wants you to do, but go to become an EMT, become a scuba certified, get the points that you can prior to getting there, because that's going to help you in the interview. So that's going to give you points. I always, every interview I had with a guy that would come in and not have any skills or anything else, and we'd be like, well, what can you bring to the table? And they would be like, well, I'm a fast learner. Dude, we all could be fast learners. I don't need a fast learner. We need somebody that has skills and understanding. So learn what they do. If you want to go to scuba, which is very hard, become a really professional swimmer. Do your dives, your deep dives like you're supposed to. Understand again what they do. And if you want to go somewhere else, narcotics or whatever, get the background. Talk to the guys and gals that are in there, and understand what's necessary for you to get that particular position. And I always say, have a backup. Not everybody's gonna not get into ESU. Not everybody's gonna get into harbor or aviation or narcotics or intel. Have another position that you want. There's so many positions in our job. If you want to move around, then find out what you got to do. But yeah, really you got to learn it and understand what you're applying for. And then when you do the interview, you'll see that you'll have the skills and understanding of that particular job, and they're gonna appreciate it. The people are gonna appreciate the that you've done that that investigation, that background on what needs to be done for that particular position. So I remember one guy coming to ESU interview, and he was like, my name's such and such, and I'm the son of da da da. There's just the father of da da da. It was like, what, this like Game of Thrones here? It's like, what the heck, man? So when you come in, be a little humble and explain yourself. And the biggest thing is sell yourself. There's a lot of people out there that they're bidding for that particular position. But I always say that I think you should study and take the test too. I even tell the ESU guys and gals, a lot of them, they don't want to leave ESU, right? So they'll say, I'm not taking the sergeant's exam because I don't want to leave ESU, and I get it, but I said, take it, because if you come back and interview in 2 or 3 years, you're gonna get picked up, because you got the skills now of both. You have skills at ESU, now you get some patrol experience as a sergeant, and you come back, and then most of the time the lieutenants or sergeants that just get retained. They don't even leave. So I mean, there's opportunity there, and you just got to find out your little niche in the job and go for it. That's all. Don't procrastinate. Get in there and look for what you want to do.
By the way, thank you so much, Chief. I think that's a great advice, great synopsis. Shout out Stephen S. 470 to the podcast. Coffee and Donuts says, happy birthday, Eric. Another great show. Thank you, everyone, for all the birthday wishes. I appreciate it. Chief, I love you talking about this stuff. And you mentioned a sergeant who I think is outstanding, by the way. You mentioned Jerry Flood, part of the A-team. He did a lot of search warrants for my unit when I was in the Lower East Side as an anti-crime sergeant, also in the Bronx as a special operations lieutenant. He would do the TAC meetings and the search warrants for us. taking down doors. Awesome sergeant. So I think that's it's a great point. So how do you deal with that, right? So you have ESU members trained, they have the skills to be an ESU, but now once they pass the test, what's your assessment on bringing them back? Because what if they have those skills to do ESU, but they don't necessarily have the leadership skills? Is that something that you educate them? Because I think that the job is really lacking when it comes to leadership training. And that's where I think we need to change, because we do have people that have the skills, but they don't necessarily have leadership skills, which is another entity.
Yeah, I think so if he's an ESU guy and he gets promoted, or a gal, and he goes out, they go out, right? They're going to go out on patrol for a little while, and they experience patrol, and then they come back. We always ask, is it going to be hard for you to, you're going to be working with guys that you literally were, your life depended on them, right? You were on the stack or whatever. So you got to teach some leadership skills and make sure that they understand that they're the supervisor, that they're held accountable for things, more so than the detectives or the police officers in ESU. But the thing is ESU works as seriously as one of the most well-oiled machine teamwork ever. So. Guys you could be a sergeant in there and you got a good squad, you're flawless. So, I think the skills of leadership come with when they have to be the U-boss. Right now they're running, because sometimes there's always not a lieutenant working, so the sergeant could become a U-boss. There's a little bit more responsibility, more coordination, for citywide responses and things. So I think that leadership, it takes a little while, but they come right back into it. And don't forget that in ESU, sometimes in this particular truck, might not be a sergeant working. So I mean, I saw like Eddie Lutz. Great guy, senior guy in ESU up in Truck 3. Those are the guys that would run, that'd be the POIC. They're in charge of command. So they're already in that leadership role, so they already know. And it's just a skill set that just keeps compounding on each other, where it's just a really well-oiled machine. So they really it's not hard to bring them back and know that they're going to do a great job, because they already did a great job.
Chief, Pat Donahue has a question for you. We're going to start to wrap up in a few minutes. We got you for 2 hours this morning. We'd love to have you back on. Maybe bring you back on with Ron too. We could do like a little town hall live. So I think that would be something good. Pat Donahue got a question for you. It's a serious one.
Surprise from Pat Donahue.
I had a screen you got a screen his, but does Lukach think that the department should adopt the ESU grade promotion selection, which is based on time, rank / time in ESU, a clear defined method of selection?
Right. So the ESU guys, it's been historically 2 years, right? If you're 2 years in ESU, you're going to get promoted to third grade. We've seen lapses where it took a little longer sometimes, depending on the PC, up to third, to 3 years. I'm a big advocate of police officer special assignment, right? So I think that if you're a police officer and you're in command for a certain amount of time, that you should get that designation, police officer special assignment. Now, I know the unions, Pat Lynch and all the older unions would say, well, it's not fair, but make it fair that everybody that's 5 years in a precinct or whatever, 10 years, that they get to that police officer special assignment, and make it, they can even make that, police officer special assignment 1, 2, and 3, right? So as you reward the guys on patrol, right? Those are the guys that do the work. So I don't necessarily have to make them detectives, and that's fine. But I would definitely see that there should be some reward, some bonus. I think like Marlon's saying right now, I was always agreed with the corporal rank. A lot of other law enforcement has that. That's not bad either. But truthfully, what irks me the most is that when you see police officers killed in a line of duty, and they get promoted to detective first grade, and then up on our wall in 1PP, they put detective da 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 was killed in the line of duty. And I think that diminishes the rank of police officer because I agree with the pay and give them whatever dues, whatever they can. I absolutely agree that they should get that benefit. But that wall looks like cops aren't doing anything. It's just all these detectives that are doing it. When a civilian walks in, it's like, wow, a lot of detectives got killed in the line of duty, when in fact it was police officers. So yeah, I agree that there should be either a promotion to the, I know Pat's a union guy. I agree. You know what? At a certain point, yeah, there should be a point where guys get that promotion, whether it's police officer special assignment, police officer detective, corporal. There should be a reward. They always, what was the saying, right? The patrol's the backbone of the police department. Well, you got to reward then. Reward guys for staying there. Reward guys for doing that job. You look at Fogoski, right? He was in the 7-5 as a patrol cop for some 20 years. So I mean, it's time to reward the people that do the work. And I would never take the detective shields away from ESU. They're doing God's work too. So, but let's keep it fair across the board. I totally agree with that.
You know what, Chief? I'm not kidding. I love your assessment. I love how you're honoring the rank of police officer. I agree. It's a shame. I don't think the 20 years man in a sector in a precinct should be looked down upon. Unfortunately, I think that's come to that. We should actually honor him and say, wow, here's someone who's been rocking a sector for 20 years in a precinct like the 4-4, 7-5, knocking around, kicking their boots out of a car. That's someone who should be honored and respected, who really can mold new police officers. I agree. Giving them some type of rank, Marlon says corporal, whatever the case, some type of special designation. I agree. But why do we have to lump everybody as a detective? It takes away from detective. It also takes away from police officer. I think it's twofold. And I absolutely love your assessment. I really appreciate it with that. So as, I just want to say, we're holding a hell of a concept here. You're showing great stamina in retirement. Fantastic. This is 2 hours. I want to thank you. I think you're doing a hell of a job. I think it's an awesome interview. So if you could just give us some insight maybe about your family, what do you do in retirement? Let's if we could learn about the chief in retirement. What do you do in your days off the job? What's your life like? Hobbies, music, movies? What are you into?
So my wife and I, we run every morning. We do our 3 miles. We're down here in Florida, enjoying those. Right now it's freezing cold weather, but normally we're enjoying the nice weather. I when I first got out, I applied to a couple other jobs. I had with my background and stuff, but I never heard anything, so I really didn't follow anything further, and I just kind of went back in that relaxed mode. Kind of enjoying myself. I love the flexibility of retirement. We want to come back up to New York, visit the kids and stuff. We can do that. You want to go on a day to the beach, whatever. It's just it's really the freedom, because I think when you're on the job, you're always concerned about, what 5 weeks am I getting off? When do I got to go back? And when can I get off again or whatever? So it's just that open flexibility. So yeah, not doing much. I'm enjoying myself and my family and my wife. And luckily, my wife, she's kind of accepted me. It was a little hard in the beginning. She's like, "What? You're home again? You're home? What are you doing here?
Who is this guy?
Who are you?" But she's accepted it. So yeah. So we're doing well. So.
Yeah.
I hope your wife's standing there right now saying, all right,
Yeah.
you mentioned me, thank God.
Exactly.
He looks a little nervous. He looks like, I think she's right there. So, Chief, it's a tradition. We've been asking every retired member of the service same 2 questions. The first question is, at the time you came on the job, would you do it again? Would you come back on being that young at the time you did? And then the followed by the next question, which is, if you were that young again when you came on, would you do it now?
Right. So I definitely would do it again. Like I had a lot of fun. It was coming on. I was a little older. I was like 25. So little, but the antics and the jokes and the fun, it was great. I mean, there was one guy in the police academy, they called him a rat, and I was like, why you call him a rat? He's like, well, he doesn't take showers after he does the gym, so he's a recruit against taking showers. And I'm like, oh, all right, I got you. So just the antics and stuff, I would definitely do it again. Now, nah, no way. I'd look for another position somewhere else. You know, there's too many other places that you can earn the respect and enjoy the job. I mean, I think it's lost that.
Chief, we haven't had not one person has said they everyone has given the same answer. They loved it. It would come on again. As a young man, if you go back in time, but no one would come on now. And we definitely see the same thing. And listen, legitimate reason. We see what's going on here. I wouldn't either. I didn't expect to be at this point in my life, but it works out great. I get to meet great people like you, and it opens all new doors. I say, let's not build walls, let's open doors. And that's what we're doing. Open doors to new people that we get to speak to and this path they're on, build new friendships and relationships. I got to tell you, this was a hell of an interview. 2 hours went by really quick. I think you did a hell of a job. You showed a lot of stamina. Thank you so much. I love your insight. I really think that's, I really like what you said. It really, it resonated. I never even thought about it, that we're not honoring the rank of police officer by making everybody detective. I really enjoy that assessment. I learned something today from you, and I want to thank you for that. And with that being said, I want to honor you, Rob Lukach, or as they say, no cash. Thank you for coming on here today, doing a hell of a job of the interview. I think you showed completely genuine. I think your answers were honest. You showed a lot of courage speaking about the leadership and what's going on right now. So I thank you, and I bless your wife and your family, and that they have you in retirement, and you're running 3 miles a day, not a mile and a half. So God bless you. And you look fantastic. Seriously, you look great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mahansky, am I say that right? Just donated $19.99 to the podcast. Says, happy birthday, Eric. Great interview, Chief. Thank you for honoring the great rank of police officer. The NYPD has been compromised. The job needs more blue buds and less admin spots. God bless the NYPD. Tish will right the ship. And just a note on that, we are, Sal Greco put out, and we've been getting it numerous times, that Tish is on her way out the door. We're not sure that that's accurate or not. Obviously, she's been running a well orchestrated public relations campaign to boost her image, boost her up as a Teddy Roosevelt figure to come in and clean up the NYPD, which I don't think anyone at this point is saying is not corrupted. We don't feel like she's been doing a great job of it, but I think she's looking to make a run for mayor. We've been seeing her be probably more undermined than we even seen Keechant Sewell be undermined. So I don't think we'd be shocked if she does step down. So, I don't think anybody here would it would be anything, it would be anything. It wouldn't come to a shock to all of us. So, Chief, before we get out of here, you want to just give us your final thoughts, final words to everybody, and what are you seeing for the future? What do and what do you think?
Right. So I listen, I really appreciate you guys having me on. John, thank you. Eric, I appreciate you. Last time I saw Eric was he was on top of a car in the Bronx. Yeah. I almost got my head bashed in by some guy with a brick behind me. It was a detective, I think, from the 4-0 that stopped the guy from hitting the. And I was maced and everything. That was a terrible day, but
I lost 15 vacation days.
Yeah, you shouldn't have lost any. Like I said, thank God you were on top of that car, because
it was crazy. They were trying to pick up a wheelbarrow to throw it at the cops.
Yeah, I think that, like, on the other side of that wall, they were throwing bikes and stuff over. It was like sick. I know, it was just bad day. But and I always joke around because Monahan. I was at that meeting when Monahan goes, "They will not get to the hub. We will stop them. I don't care what we have to do." And then everybody did it. And then the next thing you know, I got I got a lawsuit too. I was like, they're suing me. I said, we did what we were supposed to do. We stopped them, and then they were mad at us for stopping them. It was insanity. But now listen, so Eric, also happy birthday. I appreciate what you guys do. So it's vitally important. And what you guys do is you're able to bring out the talk and the information that maybe only two partners talk to each other about, but you're able to bring it into a family of, finest unfiltered. Everybody on the chat, gets to say stuff, gets to talk about it. And then I would hope that everybody that's there on the chat spreads this out across the department and lets everybody know that they should be on this podcast, watching and listening, so that they understand the realm of what's going on in the department, because the department is secretive. They'll send you down a little memo like they did with that, with the immigrants or whatever, and they'll keep it blanketed but not understand it, not delve into it like you two guys do, and bring it to the point where everybody understands it. Vitally important what you guys do. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so happy that you had me on. I appreciate the everybody that's in the chat. I love the jokes, the people that, it's like the old precinct stuff where somebody throws something out and like, I'm like literally sitting there laughing. No, this is crazy what was said. But, yeah, it's all good. The department, it needs change. I hope it gets the change that it needs to make it great again. It's not gonna be done by putting the same people with different hairdos and keep going back in. It's not gonna work. So that's it. Don't change.
That's a good way to put it. I like it. I like different hairdos.
So I hope it changes for the better. We all have a vested interest in it, right? It's a job that we loved. We don't want to go to see it to go to crap. So yeah, you could say, oh, you don't live in the city, you don't live here, you don't live there, but you know what? We care about the guys and gals that are working right now. We care about everything they do. Every time I hear somebody gets shot at or something, somebody's texting me or letting me know. And our heart, believe me, you could be retired, but our heart and soul is still with every one of you on patrol. And we hope it gets better for each and every one of you. And, for John, Marlon and Sal, I support you 100%. I hope you get your job back. You need petitions signed, you need something done, let us know, because we're still family and we do care about you. Believe me, we do. So that's what I got. Again, I appreciate you guys having me. Would love to be back on again. Good to be reunited with Ron and everybody. So yeah, it was a great day. I really had a great time. I really appreciate you.
I want to thank you for coming on here. First of all, you interviewed really well. Some great insight and most importantly, you were honest. And I think you showed a lot of courage coming on here and talking about your career over 2 hours and your assessment. And the fact that you knew the nickname, I think that's huge. Shows how much respect you had in that unit, and you had somebody come on here today. And you're right, we built all this friendship. So thank you so much. Thank you to your family. I hope they're enjoying your retirement. I'm glad that you're staying in shape and that you're running every day, taking care of yourself. I mean, listen, clearly you can see it. You can tell you're in shape. Take care of yourself. Fantastic. Enjoy that retirement. God bless you. Welcome to come on here anytime, except, though, Ron Layson says if you and him come on together, that I have to wear a bow tie. So you know what? I'll tell you what. I'm a man of my word. If you guys come on together, I'll put on the bow tie. You got it.
All right, guys. All right, listen, that was it. Finance Unfiltered. We'll be back at you Monday morning, live 8:05. Appreciate everybody for joining. We had about 1,200 people on here with us the whole time. And if you guys want to follow the good chief, I have his social media links below to contact him. And it was a great show. So, ladies and gentlemen, the great and powerful Rob Lukach.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.